And we are live with Curt Highet. Curt, how are you this fine morning?
Very good, very good. Nice to have a relaxing weekend.
We were just talking before the listeners got here. We were talking about how we had technical challenges with different Microsoft products. Wow, who would ever think that after a global outing like that last
Yeah,
Friday? What is it? 3 days ago now that we might have some difficulty with our testing and our products working together.
yeah, no kidding.
Was
No
it
kidding.
what did it impact you guys at Prime Therapeutics or not?
I do not believe it had impact on our business, but it
Okay.
for sure affected many of our, like connecting to pharmacies and hospitals on that side. They were probably affected.
It sounded like from, the general statements by Fortune 1000 kind of companies that almost every company was impacted at some level, but companies were pretty amazingly able to deal with it and get through the day with some amount of operational ability that allowed for it to be not overly painful, which is a credit to all of the hardworking people in technology operations and all the regular people on the job that were willing to dial in and be part of the solution to get the patches all where they needed to be. So
Yeah,
makes for
for
an
sure.
exciting couple of days for everybody.
It does
Yeah.
for sure.
So I'm looking outside my window now, and I have a wife who's a fantastic gardener. I've got flowers all over the place. And I've been told that you are also a gardener. Is that true?
That, well, I guess I don't know if I'm that big of a gardener. I like having perennial flowers that the hummingbirds and the butterflies and the bees enjoy. So I have a collection of many perennial different plants that attract them in and allow them to have something to feed on and pollinate from mid-May through the end of September. Just so different, plants that have different blooming periods of time that overlap.
And how did you figure out the right kind of plants to attract hummingbirds and bees? And was it a trial and error? Did you do research, or how did you come up with the right plants?
Well, initially it was we went to the zoo and saw the butterfly garden, right? And said,
Huh?
"Oh, I love the look of the flowers, and if it attracted butterflies, how do you do this?" And then they said, "Talk to Bachman's, which is a local florist here, and get advice from them." And sure enough, most of the plants you can go through, they tell you if it's what type of attractor it is. Some will even tell you this will not be appealing to rabbits and not be appealing to deer and things like that. So they're well labeled if you go to a professional nursery.
Huh. And you found it to be 80-90% accurate what they're telling you, and it's worked out.
hmm Absolutely, yep. And then
Okay.
every year you just have to clean it up at the end of the year and then let it grow the next year.
And
So
that's the hard part. That's the hand weeding part. And
yeah.
what else is it hand weeding pretty much every year or throughout the year, or?
Oh, throughout the summer you have to do that, right? Keep it back and then in the fall it's just, you have the dead stems and things that you have to clean out.
How has it been for you this year? Has it been just an incredible rainforest-like growth?
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Many of them want to spread even more than they already are. So actually, in a way, cutting them back a little bit so that they don't overlap and you get the full bloom.
Yeah. Do you think your QA background helps you with picking flowers and with gardening? Your attention to
Uh,
detail? I mean, like when I notice QA people, I think of very attention to detail kind of people. Would you agree with that? Have you seen that in your career?
oh, that's one way I apply it. How about that? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you feel like the best QA people are high attention to detail people, or are there some that are big picture and they apply that in a different way?
Uh, you know, you really need both. In my experience, having the big picture in mind, but then how do you get to the details to actually perform that validation, right? So that you can Look at the big end-to-end view, right? If in today's world there's so many tools and capabilities for developers to self-test and build automation, we want to enable them to do that and let the people that are more of the quality engineer type focus on the, okay, so this basic set of code fits here in the picture, but it takes from here and feeds to there. Let's make sure it still all works together, right? So that the software engineer can focus on, the part that they know best, and we focus more on the bigger picture. But there's a real need for attention to detail about how do you actually make that work, and work in such a way that it's fast, so that build deploys can happen over and over and over again during the course of a day, a week, a month. Right?
Is testing and quality assurance getting more technical or less technical? You mentioned, writing code or writing their own scripts, or so AI is coming into some level of operations at most companies. Do you see it being more tech? Are people going to need to be more technical or less technical, relying on AI over the next 5 or 10 years for testing?
More technical in my opinion. That's why for my department we have been working on upskilling to be more of the quality engineer versus quality analyst type role. So we focus on the ability, even if you don't necessarily automate, what's the ability to automate this set of tests and validations, and how can we help the developers self-automate wherever possible.
And where does the business, making sure the business requirements part come into that? Because that, like a lot of times, the more technical someone is, the more focused they are on the bits and bytes in the code, and they start to lose focus on, well, wait a second, the business objectives are these 30 things, and we need to make sure that that's rippling through whatever the end product is. How do you do that?
Well, there's probably many techniques, but the primary source of where you get started of what should I consider to validate is those set of, whether it's stories or use cases or technical requirement design documents. It depends, right? The source of where you get that. You should be able to trace that to, oh, this is what we need to validate, but then also look at what code changes are happening. Oh, this is what changed. And you can, using techniques and tools, oh, wait a minute, we missed a whole requirement, or at least it appears we have, right, to ask the question. So you can then either say, oh, we missed tying those two together, or yes, you're right, we missed it entirely. So that's where the QA part of it still needs to exist, right, is to make sure that we're covering the bases of what's required. And then, of course, how you implement it becomes quite technical.
Yeah. You lead groups, so you have the testing background, but you're really in a leadership role. And are you doing both local and offshore testing groups, or what's that like?
Yes, we have United States-based people, and Prime is fully remote. So let's start with that. And the company is fully remote, and so we have people across the United States. Employee-wise, we supplement with a strategic partner who has people also in multiple locations within the United States, Toronto, and over in India. And so we try to balance the need and coverage based on what work's happening, right? So things that can be done in India and not require interaction with the actual development team are, those are done overnight and shipped to there. Things that require attention interactively with the development team, we do with the onshore mix.
And a lot of times people struggle with that 12-hour time difference because there's almost no communication that goes on during that period. How do you address that challenge? Has it been effective for you in the QA group at Prime?
It has been. What I would say is that is a result of the fact that we don't force the 10 or 15 or maybe 20% onshore and the rest offshore. What we do is we offshore what makes sense, And what that has led us to say is for some periods of time, it's been about 60% offshore, and some periods of time, like now, it's about 45% offshore. And it all has to do with what type of work are you facing at the time and the mix of skills that you need to deliver. So we have the strategic partnership, part of the parameters requires high flexibility in terms of ramp up, ramp down, but also skill set ramp up, ramp down.
Is the who makes the decision on what's appropriate to go offshore? Is it actually people who are doing the work? Is it you? Is it a CIO or more of an executive level kind of decision? Or
Well, we have the CIO and leadership team support for leveraging offshore wherever possible. So they encourage myself working in partnership with our development teams to say, hey, let's look at what you have ahead of you, right? And this looks like this part of the work could be done offshore. How about we set ourselves up so we can do it that way and prove ourselves, right? Prove that we can actually deliver and always be on the ready that, hey, if it doesn't work, how do you bring it back and align? And like I say, that's partially why we have some folks in Toronto is you still get a little bit of a price break, but you essentially get an overlap of hours in terms of service.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah,
It's
and every
like
10, 15% I'll take.
Right. I was just going to say, what is it? It's like 10, 15% or something.
Yeah.
Price reduction. Have you looked at onshore US based models that are variable cost kind of models? So like fixed bid, shipping out work where it's a cost savings model, but it's a, different than the just having people on staff. Is that something you guys do or not?
There's been some of that, yes, right, where the what do we need is well known, and we can say, hey, we want you to deliver this for us. And oh, by the way, when you come back, you have to give us the keys to the car you created for us, right? So that we can carry it forward.
Yeah. We're seeing more of that, I would say, is that model using local, which probably ties into what you're talking about with Toronto.
Yeah.
So before I let you go, we're getting towards the end of our time, but I wanted to ask you about Abel and Zabel. I was thinking I might actually get to see them today. Are they around, or is that not a? Do they only show up on the weekends?
They show up on the weekends, but I could always bring up my chicken.
And so
just born, how fluffy.
Is that part of the stories that you tell, and you'll have these different puppets, and do you have a cast of characters like that?
I do have a cast of characters. There's a few of them up on my shelf here in my office when I use the people puppets to interact. It's very Muppet-esque.
You can see the Muppet. You can see the Muppet, and some of those characters are Muppet characters, it looks like.
Yeah, well, yeah, they definitely look like it. They're inspired by that for sure. Yes. And Abel and Zabel are just the common where I start with the kids when I tell stories, and then I introduce the different characters based on if you need just that third or fourth person to perform.
I think we should have a separate podcast channel where we just do the puppets only and we tell stories. I think we'll crush it on the internet.
Well, why not? Why not?
Second careers for each of us. Curt Highet, thank you so much for your time. Great talking to you.
Thank you.
For everyone else out there, you're watching the vodcast.